All right, artists. So this presentation is going to go over your first photography kind of exercise slash project. This is going to be more of a technical project, and then next week you're going to have a little bit more of a creative project to do. So I'll link this video, like the PDF that we're going to go through in Canvas as well so that you can go through it again. But in this video, I'm going to go in a little bit more detail of the expectations and requirements. So I suggest watching it all the way through. So the challenge for this project, for this exercise, you will be creating small compositions focusing on each of the compositional rules you've learned thus far this week. And you'll be creating those compositions using different household objects. So I'll show some examples of what those are, but it can be anything that you can find around the house, really. And then you'll share your images, your photographs that you take, in a Google Slide presentation and include a description of each of those rules that you used and how it was effective. So some of the goals for this project is for you to be able to show me visually through photography that you understand each of the compositional rules, and not only be able to show me visually, but you're able to articulate, to kind of write and say, how does that rule actually work? How is it applied? So you're able to show me both visually and written. So for the process for this project, you'll need to have finished watching or go through the PDF of both compositional rule videos so that you understand what each of the rules are. If you need to rewatch the videos or review the PDFs, please do so as necessary. And then your next step, after you have a good grasp of each of the compositional rules, is to collect a variety of small objects from around the house. So some ideas would be things that you could find on a desk or in a drawer, in the kitchen, hair clips, paper clips, marbles, other game pieces. You could step outside and get any kind of leaves or pine cones, branches, like any kind of small object. And maybe as you're taking photos, you kind of change and think of new objects to get. And then I want you to just play around and try to capture the most visually appealing compositions while thinking about each of the rules. So each of the photographs that you submit will focus on one or more of the rules, and you'll be able to explain how you showed that rule in that photograph. And you'll be taking these photos with any type of digital camera. So it could be your phone camera, that could be your iPad camera. If you have a separate like DSLR digital camera, that's fine to use too, any digital camera. And then you'll create a Google Slide presentation with each of your images and then descriptions on how each of those each image shows the rule and how it's effective. So I'm going to go through in this presentation some examples of that. When you are done, you'll share that link with me, your Google Slide link. You can email it to me, but I also want you to submit it in Canvas. I'm going to make it an assignment because that way I can grade right there. It's easier for me to see who has submitted, but I've had issues with students in the past who share with me a Google link, but then I don't have access to it. So please make sure it's shared with me and then give me the rights to comment so I can comment directly on your presentation. If you want to export as a PDF and just submit to me that way in Canvas, that's fine too. So just some other things to think about as you're taking photos. First of all, how many photos do you need? So we've gone through 8 compositional rules, but in your photo, some of them might cover 2 or more different rules. You need at least 5 different photos. I'm not asking you to just get one master photo with all 8 rules shown. I don't even know if that's possible. Maybe that can be a bonus challenge. But you need at least 5 different photos. I would say you could go up to 10, like maybe you double up on some of the rules, like you show rule of thirds 3 different times in combination with other rules, that's fine. But at least 5 different photos. Second, think about your lighting. So if you want to challenge yourself a little bit, maybe in some of your photos you create different types of lighting. So I think oftentimes taking photos by a bright window during the day with some natural lighting offers really nice range of highlights, shadows, midtones. That's a great kind of standard to shoot for. But you could also try to find a dark room, shut the blinds, use a flashlight or a lamp and control the lighting, get really dramatic lighting for some of your photos. That could be something cool to kind of mix them up. For your camera orientation, you can do a variety of different ways. So if you want to shoot some of your photos landscape, so that's like kind of more longer style, or some are more portrait, so when your camera is up and down, or you could change it to the square. It can be a variety of camera orientations. Just think about how it will best fit for the photo that you're taking and how you're setting up that composition. And then lastly, once you actually are making your Google Slide presentation, the description that you include for each photo should go into detail about why that photograph is effective. So next I'm going to go through some examples, so hopefully that clears it up. You can either do this in a paragraph form or bullet point forms. So I want you to, yes, include what composition rules you're following, but go into a little bit more depth, like be able to talk about that a little more. So here are some examples that I took. Okay, so this image I took is following framing and rule of thirds. So for rule of thirds, I see that the main focal point that's highlighted by the mason jar, like the opening kind of created a frame. And then the focal point lines up where, if this is broken up into thirds, it lines up where two of those lines would overlap. So for my focal point, I'm doing two great things for it, where one, it's highlighted through this frame, and two, it's lining up on the rule of thirds. And then I also talked about how I decided to edit this photo to black and white. I just liked that vibe it got. So feel free, as you are taking photos, to do different types of filters, editing, whatever you feel like will enhance the photograph. That's totally up to you. This image, I focused on unity and variety. So it starts with uniting where they're all these game pieces, they're all dice. Even the colors, like there's some repeating colors here where we have pinks and purples, kind of this blue-purple ombre look. But there's variety, they're not all the same dice. I have different sided dice. There is a variety in color too. They're at different shapes and angles. So I think I did a good job of covering both unity and variety. So it's interesting to look at. There's some variety to look at, but it still isn't just totally random. There's something that unites it together. All right, so rule of odds. I have, first of all, an odd number of subjects, so 3 kind of main focal points. But then I really tried to focus on different spacing and angles of the object. So you'll notice that I have, I created some depth where I have something closer up to me, something kind of more of in a middle ground, background. They're at different angles. So one is kind of facing backwards, one is facing straight towards us, one's facing more to the side. And they're different sized objects. So there's just some variety and differences within there. I also changed the lighting up a little bit, where I put some like paper, like wrapping paper on a window, so it gave this kind of pinkish light. I had a little bit of a hard time getting things to focus properly, but I think it still shows the rule pretty well. Now my last example for you is showing leading lines and balance. So I just found all these paintbrushes that I have at my house, and then this eraser, and I designed it to be this radial sense of balance. So remember, radial balance is where you have different lines coming off of a point. And while this is not rule of thirds, because this eraser is right in the center, I think it still does a really great job of balancing the image with all the broken up spaces, like the negative spaces are pretty even. And then leading lines, each of these brushes acts as a line kind of pointing to this more focal point eraser that says delete. So again, all of these objects were just simple things I found around the house. I took all of my photographs on my desk by a window, but I did control and change lighting a little bit. I did do a little bit of editing in some of them, like in this one I changed the filter. So I hope that you can just have fun with this, really show me that you understand each of these rules. Remember, you need at least 5 different photos, maybe up to 10. And then when you are all done with your Google slide presentation, you have your images included, you have the rules included and a description of the rules, then submit this into Canvas, but make sure you have shared the Google Slide link with me, giving me the rights to comment on it so that I can access it when it's time to grade. These presentations will be due Tuesday, April 7th. So you have all of Friday, maybe you've been working on it earlier this week, and then all of Tuesday. But by the end of Tuesday, I would like this to be shared in Canvas and shared to me. So I hope you have fun with this. Good luck, and let me know if you have any questions about the assignment in general.